It is evident that France had a keen interest in exploiting these minerals right from the outset. These resources were extracted and transported back to France, contributing to the economic growth of the colonial power while offering minimal benefits to the local population.
If you see me in the streets, better holler at me. Seeking for a beat, throw them dollars at me. I don't like defeat, take that away from me. You tryna be like me, you couldn't handle my story. But we gon' let you know, we gon' let you know. We gon' let you know, we gon' let you know.
Burkina Faso's President, Ibrahim Traore, has a plan that could lead to the collapse of European companies and the removal of European leaders from power. While it may seem unbelievable since he is just taking office, note that he has gained the authority to overthrow these leaders. In a reversal of previous events where European leaders would overthrow African leaders, Ibrahim Traore, upon becoming the president of Burkina Faso, embarked on a secret mission. He kept his plan hidden until everything was prepared and there was no opposition to its execution. However, one thing was clear. This plan was aimed at improving the well-being and advantages of the people of Burkina Faso. Consequently, European companies suffered losses because their profits were solely dependent on keeping the people of Burkina Faso deprived. After ruling for 1 year, Ibrahim Traore has finally revealed his plan, causing European leaders to hastily make emergency visits in an attempt to counter him. However, it may be too late, as Ibrahim Traore is already on the verge of implementing his grand and master plan. So, what exactly is this transformative plan, and how can it have a profound impact on Europe? Let's dive into the details in this video. Currently, all the gold mining companies operating in Burkina Faso are foreign-owned. Some belong to European nations, while others are Canadian. Surprisingly, there isn't a single gold mining company representing Burkina Faso's interests. In essence, these foreign companies have been exploiting Burkina Faso's gold reserves without any restrictions, leaving the local population with no benefits. This unfortunate situation has persisted for centuries, tracing its origins back to the time when France held control over Burkina Faso. Even though gold mining companies may not have existed during that era, France took advantage of other natural resources. Therefore, what we witness today in Burkina Faso can be attributed to the lasting effects of colonialism, particularly the European scramble for Africa in the early 1890s, during which various European military officers sought to claim territories that now constitute Burkina Faso. During the era of colonialism, there were instances where colonial figures clashed with local populations, while in other cases, they formed alliances and treaties with them. France emerged as the foremost colonial power to invade the territory that we now recognize as Burkina Faso, eventually establishing it as a French protectorate in 1896. In 1897, the eastern and western regions encountered resistance from the influential ruler Samurai Touré, leading to their occupation by the French. By 1898, a significant portion of what is now Burkina Faso had seemingly come under French control, although their authority remained uncertain in certain areas. The Franco-British Convention on the 14th of June 1898 laid the groundwork for the modern borders of the country. Over the next 5 years, there was an ongoing struggle for dominance over local communities and political powers. In 1904, the relatively pacified regions of the Volta Basin were incorporated into the Upper Senegal and Niger colony of French West Africa, with Bamako serving as its capital. French became the language utilized for colonial administration and education. While the public education system had modest beginnings, advanced education was made available for several years during the colonial period in Dakar. Behind the scenes, France had already begun exploiting the resources of Burkina Faso. It is important to understand this historical context to grasp the underlying factors contributing to the present situation in Burkina Faso. The legacy of colonization has had a profound impact on the country, shaping its borders, language, and the dynamics between local communities and foreign powers. During their rule in Burkina Faso, France extensively utilized the natural resources of the country, employing various strategies to amass wealth and establish economic dominance. One of their primary focuses was on harnessing the potential of Burkina Faso's agricultural sector, particularly through the cultivation of cotton, which emerged as a significant cash crop during the colonial era. To maximize cotton production, French authorities implemented coercive measures that often disadvantaged local communities, ensuring that the agricultural wealth flowed primarily to benefit the French economy. Moreover, the colonial regime took advantage of Burkina Faso's rich mineral resources, including valuable commodities such as gold and other minerals. It is evident that France had a keen interest in exploiting these minerals right from the outset. These resources were extracted and transported back to France, contributing to the economic growth of the colonial power while offering minimal benefits to the local population. This one-sided approach further reinforced the economic disparities between Burkina Faso and France, perpetuating a system where the wealth generated from the nation's resources primarily benefited the colonizers. France also took advantage of Burkina Faso's plentiful timber reserves and other natural resources, exploiting them for their own benefit. Timber was harvested and exported, contributing to the economic growth and industrial advancement of France. Unfortunately, this extraction of resources resulted in environmental degradation within Burkina Faso. Additionally, France heavily relied on the labor force in Burkina Faso for the extraction and processing of these natural resources. However, the workers faced harsh working conditions and received insufficient compensation, perpetuating economic exploitation and exacerbating poverty among the local population. Tragically, this cycle of resource and labor exploitation continues to persist in Burkina Faso to this day. It is important to understand that this situation is not a result of Burkina Faso itself, but rather the actions of foreign companies. These companies have prevented the development of Burkina Faso, leaving little room for job opportunities for the youth. Consequently, many young individuals are forced to work as laborers in mining sites, enduring horrific conditions. As mentioned earlier, only the masters have changed over time. Some argue that the colonial administration made investments in infrastructure projects like roads and railways. However, it should be noted that these endeavors primarily aimed at facilitating resource extraction and transportation to benefit the colonial power, rather than genuinely improving the overall well-being of the local people. During that period, the indigenous population faced significant discrimination. African children were prohibited from engaging in activities like riding bicycles or picking fruit from trees, which were considered privileges exclusively reserved for the children of colonists. Violations of these regulations could lead to the imprisonment of parents. On the 1st of March 1919, French Upper Volta was established as a separate entity from Upper Senegal in Niger due to concerns of recurring uprisings and economic considerations. Under the leadership of Governor Francois Charles Alexis Edward Hessling, the new colony embarked on an ambitious project to build roads and encourage the cultivation of cotton for export. Unfortunately, the forced policy of growing cotton did not succeed, resulting in little progress in generating income. As a consequence, the colony was dissolved on September 5, 1932. Its territory was divided among the French colonies of Ivory Coast, French Sudan, and Niger. Ivory Coast received the largest portion, which included the majority of the population and the cities of Ouagadougou and Bobo-Dioulasso. On December 11, 1958, a significant moment occurred when the colony achieved self-government and became known as the Republic of Upper Volta, joining the Franco-African community. This change was made possible through the enactment of the Basic Law on July 23, 1956. Following this, the French Parliament approved reorganization measures in early 1957, granting greater autonomy to individual territories. Upper Volta eventually became an autonomous republic within the French community on December 11, 1958, and finally gained full independence from France in 1960. However, the exploitation of African countries was not limited to Burkina Faso alone. Even after decades of gaining independence, Africans continue to face exploitation. Although the colonial masters have changed, agreements have emerged, and European companies are now exploiting African resources with the consent of corrupt leaders. Unfortunately, the situation for the people of Africa has not improved. When one observes the current working conditions and ongoing exploitation in Africa, it becomes difficult to determine whether it is still a colony or not. Throughout history, Africans have risked their lives to extract valuable resources, often resorting to hazardous methods such as using mercury in small-scale mining operations. Yet, tragically, the fruits of their labor are seized by middlemen who acquire these resources at significantly lower prices. These intermediaries then sell the resources in Western markets, reaping substantial profits that primarily benefit Europe and America. Captain Ibrahim Traore, for instance, expressed his concern about the difficult circumstances faced by many Africans engaged in dangerous gold mining operations. Regrettably, these individuals receive minimal compensation when they sell their produce in the African market. Consequently, the gold is exported to Western markets, generating significant profits for others while neglecting the needs of local communities. This ongoing cycle of exploitation and unequal distribution of resources perpetuates the hardships faced by African nations, highlighting the persistent challenges they encounter despite gaining independence. Endeavour Mining is a prominent mining company based in the UK that plays a dominant role in Burkina Faso's gold mining industry, controlling almost one-third of the country's gold market. In July 2020, Endeavour Mining acquired Monomine as part of its takeover of Samafo, a gold miner based in Canada. This transfer of African resources to foreign entities is not an uncommon occurrence. Previously, a Canadian company owned the mine and now is under the ownership of a UK-based firm. It is astonishing to note that Endeavour Mining holds a 90% share in the mine, while the Burkina Faso government only has a meager 10% stake, highlighting the prevailing foreign control. Despite being ranked as the world's 14th largest gold producer in 2022, Burkina Faso fails to benefit significantly from its own gold reserves. It is increasingly evident that the gold does not truly belong to the people. The majority of multinational companies exploiting these resources come from various countries outside Burkina Faso, while the government holds a minor share that can be easily acquired. It is ironic that foreign companies possess almost all the gold mines in Burkina Faso and receive full support from the government. This situation arises because previous corrupt leaders made long-term agreements for their personal gains. Furthermore, these foreign companies treat the gold mines in Burkina Faso as if they are their own property, even selling them to other companies. Throughout these developments, the youth working in the mines endure the worst conditions, witnessing only a change in their masters. Consequently, the people have minimal control over their own gold and are unable to benefit from their own resources. Recently, the government had to purchase 200 gold bars from Endeavour Mining instead of utilizing its own gold, essentially paying for the same gold that these companies extracted from mines in Burkina Faso. This ongoing scenario highlights the need for greater local control and fair distribution of resources, as the people of Burkina Faso continue to be disadvantaged while foreign entities profit from their own land. Before we continue, I'd like to remind you that I'm an AI language model and cannot perform actions like liking, sharing, or subscribing to videos. However, I'm here to help answer any questions you might have. Now, let's proceed. Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traore is determined to take a stand against the suppression and exploitation of his people by foreign companies in the 21st century. To address this issue, he has decided to establish a government-owned company responsible for overseeing all foreign companies operating in Burkina Faso. Under this new company, the previous agreements made with foreign companies will be reevaluated and renegotiated. Ibrahim Traore understands that these agreements were unfair, as the foreign companies provided lucrative benefits to earlier leaders in exchange for mining permits. To rectify these imbalances, the foreign companies will be reminded of their place and informed that they are guests in Burkina Faso. Similar to other independent and powerful countries, taxes will be imposed on them. The years of exploitation must be addressed, and Captain Ibrahim Traore is determined to reverse the situation. Previously, the people of Burkina Faso were perplexed as to why they remained impoverished despite being rich in natural resources. It is disheartening to discover that despite being the world's 14th largest gold producer, Burkina Faso continues to face economic challenges.
Creation, reaction, God. Big up TRB family. Misterjaay, I see you. I know some artists don't do this. God bless you and your family.